Just as a heads up everyone, the Saberon are probably the least developed out of all of the races of Draenor. I mean, they are the only sentient race of Draenor whose origins were not explained in Chronicle Volume 2. Basically, this means that I really had to dig to the barest mentions they received to cobble together enough information for this lore fact, so no earth-shattering revelations, no really cool stories, well, with one exception. The Saberon seem to practice a form of social stratification where magic users rank higher up than melee fighters. This is shown by the fact that, in general, the melee types wear minimal clothing, often just a loincloth, while the magic users wear lavish garments and ornaments. This rule does not really apply to their chieftains though, who tend to have various abilities. On that note, we don't really know how they choose their leaders, whether it's hereditary, elective, power-based, or a combination thereof, though the chieftains tend to be the strongest of their tribe, or clan as the Saberon call it in-game, so it's probably more so the latter method. The Saberon usually use forms of nature, shamanistic, and spirit magic. The Iroquois outcasts say that they use a, quote, primitive form of magic. And indeed, these kinds of magics are usually used by primitive races such as kobolds, murlocs, gnolls, etc. We also know some specific magical traditions of the Saberon, notably the Saberon shamans, or at least the Bloodmain tribe shamans, or at least the novice shamans of the Bloodmain tribe, use prayer beads. These function in a very similar way to how more typical shamans use totems, namely the prayer beads help the Saberon hear the elements, and their absence heavily diminishes the user's connection with them. The Snarlpaw tribe of Saberon also have bone seers, casters who divine the future by using the remains of the dead, though it's almost always other races' dead, not their own, which tends to cause the spirits of those remains to continue to haunt the area. The Saberon are usually the apex predators of the wildlife in their area. It's been directly stated, though it could also be more of a metaphor, that if you kill their champions you gain the respect of all the local creatures. The tribes make their living both by hunting game and by raiding nearby peoples, though in the eyes of the Saberon there isn't much of a difference. They have hunted, killed and eaten Iroquois and orcs as early as hundreds of years ago, and the range of sentient creatures they feast upon has obviously expanded ever since the arrival of the Horde and Alliance expeditions into alternate Draenor. It's extremely rare that they are not outright hostile to people they encounter, almost certainly the main reason there is so little known about them, though there has been at least one case where a Saberon was captured and agreed to sell out their tribe in exchange for their life. They are reputed as, quote, notorious looters, often taking even the most useless things on their raids, such as supply registers, and also have a habit of hunting for sport, not just for sustenance. Again, this also applies to sentient creatures. As a result, there are groups, such as the Saber Stalkers, who see them as little more than beasts and will hunt and kill them as readily as any other wildlife. While never stated outright, given their absence in Burning Crusade's Outland, it's very probable that they were hunted to extinction by the Old Horde, given the nuisance they posed. About 600 years ago, the Bloodmain tribe of the Spires of Iraq made a habit of preying upon the Iroquois outcasts, those afflicted by the curse of Seth and unable to fly. Eventually though, they grew bored and decided to prey upon the High Iroquois, those who could still fly. Their young leader, Pride Lord Karash, instructed his tribe in using nets, ropes and harpoons. Hard to say how he knew to do so, but the rest of his clan didn't, and initially targeted isolated Iroquois scouting parties. As they proved successful, the Saberon declared open war on the Iroquois, ambushing large groups and even besieging their native spires. Karash ordered his followers to bring him 10,000 Iroquois feathers, though this seems like an odd request given how many feathers an individual Iroquois has. The Iroquois were unprepared to deal with this threat, believing themselves immune from the lower creatures. Eventually, their Talon King, Terok, rallied his people by launching raids on the Bloodmain all by himself. He turned the tide of the war by himself and slaughtered Karash, ending the threat and the war in one fell swoop. Perhaps surprisingly, once broken, Turok decided to leave the Bloodmain tribe in peace to rebuild, confident that they would not attack again. The Saberon assault caused massive shifts in Arakoa society. The Anhar priesthood were discredited, as the populace came to believe that their goddess Rukmar had forsaken them, while the power and prestige of the monarchy increased. This eventually led to a coup by the priesthood, casting off Turok and establishing a theocracy, which lasted until the rise of the Horde. As for the Bloodmain, there is indeed little indication that they clashed with the Higher Arakoa in a major way again, though they continue to prey upon the outcasts and any other race that ventured into the spires of Iraq.